Hey everyone, new episode, Retro Gamers. You're downloading, you're subscribing, you're listening. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What's up, Ant? How you doing?
I'm doing just perfect. How are you?
Peachy. I'm doing peachy. Got some good weather here in New York finally. So.
Oh yeah, and the heat finally hit in LA. It was like 95 degrees yesterday, so we're starting to get up there.
No, thank you. Yeah, it was hot during the week. It was chilly yesterday, but today's been pretty cool. Haven't been outside just yet, but I got to venture out there very shortly anyway. So.
Oh yeah, I already went out and did a nice little 6-mile run this morning.
Well, I woke up and had my Atkins shake. So.
Well, you know what? Hey, good for you.
I got to start somewhere.
I was just gonna say, you got to start somewhere. My start was a 6-mile run at 5 a.m.
There you go. You know, better.
Yours was a shake in the fridge.
Atkins shake better than the Hungry Man Hero I would normally get. So.
Oh yeah, okay. You know what? Kudos, good call.
So, but yeah, no, another week down, another week of gaming bliss, and I've been playing around. Actually, what?
I was gonna say, is it bliss if you haven't really played them?
No, I was just gonna say I've been toying around with the ones that you got me from Japan. So,
and how are they?
So far, so good. The Takeshi's Challenge, man. That's gonna be that's gonna be a rough one.
Have you beaten your wife yet?
No, not yet. I haven't gotten there yet. And I forgot because I was watching the video again from JonTron when he was talking about it. It's your wife and your kids you have to beat up.
Oh my god, that's just.
But they attack you.
Horrible.
They attack you. So.
Oh, they attack you. Okay,
yes,
if they attack you, then they deserve it.
Not my fault. It's either pay alimony or beat them up, and I need my money.
Okay, and then in since you've been in gaming you've been in gaming bliss. I, on the other hand, have been languishing and not gaming at all. In fact, I played maybe about half an hour of Breath of the Wild because I got my Switch back.
Oh yes. Oh,
yes, I got it. And I tested it, and it's working perfectly.
Beautiful.
So,
do you still have your save?
Yes, and I still have my save. Thank you, Nintendo, for not destroying my Breath of the Wild. I'm still pissed at you for the NES Classic, but at least you fixed my Switch. Thank you.
I bought, for the Switch real quick, I bought a second dock for the Switch to put in my bedroom. So now I have one in the living room, one in the bedroom, so I can, wherever I want to be. But when I was starting to play Breath of the Wild in the new dock, that left Joy-Con started acting up a little bit. So, no, I'm gonna have to check.
Well,
they said
that there are general issues. And they make you go through I told the story already where they make you go through these weird things where they're like, make sure your dock is not near I don't know, like other machinery or things like that. And I'm like. I'm like one of the things that they told me, they're like, is your dock not near whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it has to be near a television.
Yeah, honestly, right?
I'm like, otherwise how am I supposed to play it? But no, there were certain things you can't, if you put it near it, there's interference or something with the connection and, whatever. It's like, but you got to do that. And then they do the toothbrush thing. So if you're going to call them, with left Joy-Con issue, I strongly suggest you have a spare toothbrush handy, or something that sounds like a toothbrush so you can fake it.
So I guess was it an issue with the Switch itself, or did you have to return the Joy-Con also?
Yeah. So they made me return the Switch itself and the left Joy-Con. But nothing else. Okay. They were very clear, on the phone. They're like, do not include any games. Do not include the right Joy-Con. No wires. No dock. Just send the Switch with the left Joy-Con, and do not send it back in the Switch box because it's getting stolen in the mail.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So if mine was the left Joy-Con, when I would move with the character, he would just keep moving after I let go of the stick, and then he would just walk off cliffs. Okay, there's no way I'm going to beat this game with the Joy-Con doing it. So if you're starting to have issues with it, better do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, right.
And it's back in your hands within a week. So
it's not bad.
They're pretty quick with it.
That's good. All right, I'll check that out. I'll continue testing it. So
getting back to your gaming, at any point in time were you playing Castlevania 2?
I haven't touched Castlevania 2. No, I haven't given up. I was busy. I went to my what was yesterday? Oh, yesterday was Saturday, not Friday. What was I doing Friday? I was doing something Friday.
I was gonna say, well, you were just talking about Gaming Bliss and playing different games. I thought maybe you would get back to Castlevania too. It's been a while.
No, it has been a while. Yesterday I was playing Super Mario Brothers 3 with my godson and his little brother, so that I got some gaming there, and
Cool.
it was pretty fun. I even I got taught a little bit because it was I forgot what level it was, but there was a mushroom somewhere which I never remember seeing. I think it was somewhere on level 2, World 2 or something. And my godson's 6.5 at this point, and he's like, "Don't forget the mushroom." I'm like, "There's no mushroom there. What are you talking about?" It's like, "Yes." I'm like, "I've played this game for like 20-something years, or maybe 30. How long has the game been out? Like, there's no mushroom."
93, 91,
Something like that.
Nope, 89.
I'm like, "There's no mushroom." And
Yeah, whatever.
Lo and behold, there was a mushroom. So I'm like, "Oh, this kid's schooling me pretty good." But so I did get some retro gaming in, and albeit I have the NES Classic, he has the NES Classic, but I think something better than the NES Classic is going to be available, which may be available for your wheelhouse, even though you already have an NES.
Oh yeah, no, I heard. Yes, I've heard all about this.
Yes.
Actually, but you go right ahead.
It is, and it's available through Amazon as well. It is the Hyperkin RetroN 1 HD gaming console for NES. It retails for $39.99, and the beauty of this thing is that now RetroN they've put out a lot of systems, and if you don't know what a RetroN is, it's basically an emulator system that uses actual cartridges. NES, Genesis, what else have they done? The Japanese equivalents of those, even
Famicom, Super Famicom.
Yep. Game Boys. I think the last...
Game Boy. The last one they came out with was the RetroN 5, which had like 10... You could play 10 different cartridges on the system.
Yep. But what it does is, and if I'm not mistaken, when you put the cart in, it actually will kind of rip the game, not literally, it's called ripping the game from the cart, downloading it onto a memory card, and then basically turning it into an emulator. So you weren't playing off the cartridge, you were playing off of an emulator, which is fine. But this new RetroN 1 HD, it only plays NES. It's kind of shaped kind of sort of like an NES, but a little different for copyright purposes. And some of the beauty parts of it, first of all, it's in full HD. We're talking HDMI, 720p, that you can play these NES games on.
As these games were meant to be played.
Yes, totally. Oh, of course. In 16:9 ratio. It plays here.
Everybody's going to look fat.
Yeah, honestly. Well, you'll be able to shrink it down to 4:3, so it's okay. You will be able to play both NTSC, which is North American cartridges, and PAL cartridges, which is European. So not necessarily. I don't think Japan is Japan PAL?
I don't know.
Okay, because I don't think they would probably said Japanese games. But the beauty of this whole thing is that it runs the game off the cartridge. So this is probably the second. There's another one out. I fail to remember the name right now. But this is probably the second system I've seen put out that is pretty much as close to a Nintendo Entertainment System that you'll get that doesn't have the actual Nintendo logo on it.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, I like the concept of it and all. So like people out there who, people who want a retro game again, want to play off the original cartridges, it's an excellent system to pick up. However, I mean, if you with the exception of, the HDMI hookup. So if you want the HD, if you want an HD version of it, then great. It's and the price is right. I think $40 is an excellent price for it. Right. But if you already have an original NES and you're happy with the way that you're playing it, then I don't necessarily see a need. See, like I have two original NES consoles. So my need for a system like this is only if I want to hook it up, to an HDMI.
Of course. And that goes without saying. I mean, even the NES Classic, you have that same argument because a lot of people may have the original cartridges. But for those who don't have an NES anymore or an original thing or want a new system, like don't want to buy a used NES but want something new, this is going to be the way to go, I think. This RetroN 1. $40, through Amazon. Can't beat it.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. And for anybody who really wants to get hardcore and you don't know about the RetroN, the RetroN 5, which is still on my list of things to purchase, the RetroN 5 is, to me right now, the ultimate third-party gaming console or retro gaming console, because that one plays NES, SNES, Super Famicom, Genesis, Sega Master System, regular Famicom, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy games.
There you go.
So yeah, it plays 10 different types of games. So if you really want a retro game, and again, this is to your point, this is like the emulator one, where it kind of downloads it, onto the drive.
Yeah.
This would be to me, like, this is the ultimate retro gaming, multi-console system.
Multi-console, no doubt. But I'm going to say for this RetroN HD, yes, it's only the single system. But for the single system, this is going to be, my opinion, the way to go. I think for Nintendo, I'd almost rather have this one than the RetroN 5. But again, that's if you have multiple games for multiple systems, that's going to be a different way to go. But I think this RetroN, the RetroN 1, is going to be big time. It comes out June 2nd, and it's actually available in both gray and black, which I think is kind of cool.
I noticed that. And in addition to that, I'm doing the research as we're talking about it. You can also buy a Zap gun for it. So for those fans out there of Hogan's Alley and Duck Hunt, you can get your Zap gun. Now, what is their response going to be to Rob? Will they make a Rob?
Well, let's see. I guess technically, yeah, it's supposed to be compatible with everything, right? Because Rob, you hooked up through the front, right?
Yeah, Rob hooked up through the controller base. Yeah. I believe you played him as the second controller.
So it should be. The only problem is not because of the RetroN, but because of the new HD televisions. If you're going to use Rob or use the Zapper, you're going to have to hook it up through, which it still has, AV cables. You have to hook it up old school on an old school television, because HD televisions don't work with the Zapper and probably with Rob.
Yeah, but if Hyperkin made their own Zap gun, so I would assume if you're buying this Zap gun, it should be compatible with an HD TV. Otherwise,
maybe a little. I didn't know they made their own. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, no. They've actually pointed it out too. This product will not work on LCD, LED, and most modern HD TV sets. So basically, it's like, buy this brand new Zap gun that we're making. Oh yeah, but I hope you have an old TV.
Well, that's because of the way the television is set up. That's more the television. That's not them. That's the technology.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, obviously. But the sad thing is, they're selling a version of the gun that you pretty much can't use anymore. Unless I go to Salvation Army and get myself a good old tube TV.
And people go out there and do it. They definitely do.
You know what? That might be the next thing on my shopping list.
Why not? Go for it.
Well, I mean, if you need it for some things, especially we're the retro gamers. I have a feeling we're just gonna have to keep one of those around.
Yeah, right. This is gonna become an investment.
It hasn't already.
Actually, I'm looking at the RetroN 5 as well. Yeah, that's
that's always been on my list.
It's like as well. I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's HD output. It's like 100. I think it's like 140, 150 bucks, brand new, ish. But considering the fact that you can play 10 different consoles on it, to me that sounds like a win.
No doubt. We got this, got that. We talked about months ago, retro blocks, which looks like they hit a snag there for a minute, but they're still working on it. But all these systems, this is going to be the way to go. And remember, the key to these systems is the fact that the patents ran out. That's why they're able to make these.
Exactly. So if we one day want to make a retro gamer system, we can.
What would that be like? They'd be like Tiger Electrics, Tiger Electronics.
Yeah, more or less. Or yeah, we'll be using the Game and Watch technology.
Or
we came out with a game. It's just got dots on it.
Not even Game and Watch, but the game that was a watch. Remember those? It was also Tiger.
God, yes.
Remember those?
I had one. I had a watch that had a game on it.
I had Super Mario Brothers. I may have had Tetris as well, but I had a Super Mario Brothers.
No, I think mine was like Breakout.
God, they were terrible. Even back then, they were terrible.
They were awful. But if anything, it just shows how much we love gaming that we buy crap like that.
So if you're more situated into just NES and you like to collect NES, or you want to start collecting NES, or if you have a bunch of games and your system don't work anymore, check out this RetroN 1 HD. If you're eclectic though and you get a little bit of everything, RetroN 5 is going to be the way to go, unless you can, find and refurbish all the original systems,
which I currently have.
There you go. I have a Genesis actually in my closet. I should break it, try it again. It wasn't working the first time I tried it.
Yeah, no, systems weren't meant to be kept in closets.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's a good closet, so.
It's unacceptable. Come on. I mean, especially if you're going to be buying retro games, you got to have the systems out so you can test them.
That was the last thing. That was my biggest worry when we started doing this podcast, is buying all the games that.
I know. My credit card's very happy.
Oh man.
But I will say it's interesting when you're going out there looking for retro games that you can find some. You find some interesting stuff in random places. Last weekend, I was at there's a place out here called Amoeba Music. I believe I took you to it when you visited, or did I? Big warehouse full of music, not video games, music and DVDs, whatever. It's like this giant warehouse. It's very popular here in LA.
Okay.
And apparently they had done video games for a while, but I guess they're selling all of them off. Mm-hmm. So I found this little section of used video games there, and I was like, what the hell? I was like, I'll go take a look and see what's what. So, and they didn't have a lot of old stuff. They had like a handful, like literally a handful, like 5, like cartridge based games, like SNES and stuff like that. And they were all sports, of course, because the easiest old school games to find are always going to be sports, because totally. They made like tons of those.
Because they outdated them in a year.
And every year they updated them. So I bypassed those because they were charging like, I don't know if they were. I think they were charging $5 for each one, and they were all sports. And I'm like, those are worth $1.
Yeah.
But then I started going through all of their stuff, and they had a lot. They had, like the majority of them were like PS4s and Xbox Ones. But as I started going back, I saw a handful. Not even a handful. I found 3 games where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna grab these, because they good price point, and I feel like one of them in particular was only $5. It was Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess for the Wii.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think you mentioned that last week.
I may have mentioned it last week. I don't know. I think I mentioned it to you off the show. So now I'm mentioning it on the show.
Good.
And if I mentioned it last week, you know what? Maybe not everybody heard me last week. If not, picked up Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess for the Wii for $5, which is awesome. Which then brought me to another interesting conversation that I had with a coworker of mine, who was lucky enough to get the Switch on Thursday because they had it in stock on Amazon, and I knew she was looking for it. So I shouted out to her. I said, "Did you get your Switch yet?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Go on Amazon right now." And 30 seconds later, it was hers. You're welcome, by the way, if you're listening. Not calling out names. But as we were having a discussion about video games, it dawned on me once again, and I don't know if I've ever brought this up here, but I've never owned a Nintendo Wii. Everybody under the sun bought the Nintendo Wii. It was the ultimate family gaming console. Everybody loved that. I never bought it.
It was hot. Yeah, I remember, especially when it first came out. I mean, it fizzled out somewhat quickly, but it was, you weren't on the...
No, it didn't fizzle out. The Wii, I thought, to my understanding, was the best-selling... Wasn't it, like, the best-selling console in history?
When I say fizzle out, I mean because it was, like, hard to get in the beginning. Again, as usual, par of the course with Nintendo, it was hard to find in the beginning. And then they started becoming regularly accessed.
Yeah, because... I also think they're still making games for it. That's what I heard. Maybe not here. Maybe in Japan. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
But, there's a possibility they may be still making games for it. But be that as it may, I still do not own a Nintendo Wii.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you have a Wii U, so at this point.
Well, I have a Wii U which is backwards compatible, but being since we're the retro gamers, and I believe we haven't initially accepted the Wii as a retro console yet. We're not there yet. I think like Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii, we're kind of still leaving in the yeah, they're kind of borderline, like still this generation. But I still need to go out and get my hands on a Wii because my collection is incomplete.
See, that would annoy me.
Yeah,
if I had that collection.
Like
you have,
I have, I have NES, SNES, I have N64, I have GameCube, I have Wii U, and I have the Switch. So there's a big gap right there for the Wii that must be filled. Now, you'll note that I skipped over a specific console that does not belong in anyone's collection, which is, of course, the ever-hated Virtual Boy.
But you don't hook that up to the television, so it wouldn't have been part of that list anyway.
Oh, that's a good point. So, like, how do you categorize that?
I still consider it a handheld.
Is it a handheld piece of crap or a console piece of crap?
I think it's a handheld, period.
Okay. All right, so I'll defer to you on that one. So the Virtual Boy is a handheld piece of crap. Good to know.
Do you have a spot on your shelf for the Wii, just waiting for it?
No.
Oh.
I am currently trying to figure out whether I start doubling up, or if my bedroom becomes a secondary location for the systems that don't fit in the living room.
Oh man, that's where things get. That's when you got to start, reevaluating what you've been purchasing and what's going on in that living room.
It has nothing to do with reevaluating what I'm purchasing. Now comes the discussion of, I think it's time for a 2-bedroom apartment because my video games have outgrown my space. I haven't outgrown my space at all. My video games have. And it would be, it would just be a shame to my systems if I neglect them in such a way as to not display them properly.
You got to display them. Definitely got to display them.
So they're already spilling out into the bedroom. My Famicom and Super Famicom are already in the bedroom.
Oh, okay.
My Atari 2600 is also in there. When my Commodore 64 makes its way out here,
oh my gosh,
because that's still in New York, I'm gonna have to hook that sucker up. Granted, it has its own monitor. No, wait, does it?
No.
All right, so Anthony, I need to find a monitor for that.
Yeah.
But that's gonna need a place to be set up, and then, So I see no other option. I'm gonna have to move.
Maybe you need a 3-bedroom apartment at that point.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have the 80-90s wing, and then we'll have the 21st century wing.
It's gonna be every room in the place will have a video game system in it.
No. That'll be when I buy the mansion.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
This will be like I'll have the Nintendo wing, I'll have the Sega wing, I'll have the everything else wing for like the Neo Geos and the Atari Lynxes of the world.
When that sweet podcast money starts rolling in.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. I can't wait. Speaking of, when am I getting my first paycheck for this?
Yeah, as soon as I get mine.
Hold out on me.
Yeah, right. So Hyperkin RetroN 1, the link will be in the description. Check it out. I'll put the RetroN 5 in there as well. Why not? We'll why leave that out? So.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, and considering the fact that the NES Classic was such a mess and a debacle, Nintendo's loss could be Hyperkin's game.
Let's hope so. What do we got this week for Retro Spotlight, Ant?
Oh, we're jumping right into Retro Spotlight. Okay,
Yep.
So, as always, I never know exactly what to spotlight every week. Like it usually, like as I'm doing my research, and my homework, which you clearly don't do when we do these things. But
I got my notes and everything this week.
Oh, you got notes?
I do.
Oh, you're growing up.
I'm learning. I'm using
awesome.
postcards, but I'm learning.
Oh God, postcards? What the hell's wrong with
index cards? I mean,
index cards. Yeah. All right. Well, this isn't a game show. You don't need index cards.
I wish. That was my dream growing up.
I know, game show host, right? But how about a video game show host?
Oh, yes, like Nick Arcade or that other one. What was that other one in the morning where the bonus round, you had to run around, you stuck the boxes to yourself with Velcro?
You stuck the boxes to yourself with Velcro?
It was the bonus round.
Was it Funhouse?
No. It was like you would play a game.
Oh, yes. I remember that game. God, what was the name of that game? Oh, no.
And then the bonus round, whatever
Oh, no, I'm old.
Whatever you got stuck to you is what you got to go home with.
Yes, I do remember that game show, and we're gonna have to research
We'll have
that.
to check
I do
that
not
for
remember
next week.
Yeah, I remember Nick Arcade, of course.
Oh, of course.
And I know Frank, who sometimes who's been guesting on our show a couple times. I know he knows Nick Arcade very well too, right, Frank? Hi, Frank. I'm still not sorry about what happened.
Oh man, sweet.
For those who don't know, my ex roommate Frank, who's been on the show a couple of times, and we've told this story. One day for work, he set the VCR to record the NHL hockey draft, and he left a note for me that fell on the floor. So when I got up in the morning, and this was VCR, by the way, so VHS. It was timed to record the draft, and I got up in the morning, didn't see the note. And I switched the television in the morning to Nick Arcade on Nickelodeon. And I watched an episode before I went out for the day. And he wasn't too happy when he got home. When he went to go watch the NHL draft, and it was 6 hours of Nickelodeon.
I love that story. Absolutely.
So do I. And I love telling it, and I'll tell it over and over again. Frank, you're the best.
I think he's caught up. He'll be able to hear that this week.
Oh, is he caught up? All right, great.
So.
Can't wait. I can't wait to get the text. Or God forbid the phone call.
Awesome.
Anyway, so as I was saying about Retro Spotlight, normally what happens is when I'm working on, when we're working on what we want to talk about for the show, I'll, usually that's what will cue me into, either that'll cue me into my Retro Spotlight, or when I'm working on This Week in Gaming, because I'll see stuff in This Week in Gaming and I'm like, oh yeah, I was like, you know what, this would be a good one to spotlight. Mm-hmm. So, and it just so happens that in This Week in Gaming, which we'll discuss later today, there was a release for one of my favorite gaming series of all time, which was Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Oh, yes.
And I thought since, and they came out with a couple of games, this week in history. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, you know what? I go, maybe Tony Hawk Pro Skater would be a good retro spotlight. So, and we haven't technically done a sports game yet. So, and yes, everybody, skateboarding is a sport, yes. Whether you think so or not.
And in the Olympics.
Yeah, well, it's in the, is it in the, no, well, I mean, they have the X Games.
I could have sworn they were adding it to the Olympics.
Are they? Oh my God, if they're adding it to the Olympics, that'd be so awesome. I don't know. I mean, because snowboarding's in the Winter Olympics, so I can't understand if it's not in the Summer Olympics by now. It should be.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, I thought, okay, let's do a retro spotlight on the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, because it was an extremely successful series. And lately we've been doing a lot of obscure spotlights.
Yeah.
So, or at least there's been a handful over the last few weeks. So I thought, let's do something for a really popular game. So this week's retro spotlight, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Here we go. So first off, it was the developer of the game was Neversoft, and it was published by Activision. Mm-hmm. Its original release was August 31st, 1999 on the original PlayStation.
Okay.
And then it had subsequent releases because of how well it did. And it was released on the N64 February 29, 2000. It made it to the Game Boy Color in March of 2000. It made it to, and this one was my particular favorite, on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast version was amazing. June 29th of 2000. And then over 3 years later, October 13, 2003, it was released again on the N-Gage.
Oh my God, what a horrible system.
Yes. But at least the N-Gage got its hands on Tony Hawk. These release dates, by the way, are for the first game in the series. Mm-hmm. There have been 15 different Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. Yes. They actually were releasing from its inception pretty much one a year until the end of their licensing agreement with Tony Hawk.
Wow.
Which was in 2015. Okay. So every year there was a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game.
Huh.
So, but, going back to the beginning, which is where I always like to go. So in 1998, Activision approached Neversoft to develop a skateboarding game because skateboarding at that time was starting to become a really popular sport.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to make the gameplay look as real as possible, the company founder of Neversoft, whose name was Joel Jewett, he built a half pipe in his backyard and started skateboarding with his coworkers.
Oh gosh.
So I have no idea how old Joel was when he did this, but in my mind, when I think of the founder of a company, I always think they're older. So whatever age, if you're starting to skateboarding as an adult, I salute you. So good for you, Joel. And then what they decided to do was they wanted to use motion capturing, because at that time motion capturing was just starting to come around. I think it was starting to become a bigger thing. So they decided to. Well, I mean, it started more with like Mortal Kombat in the early 90s.
Yeah.
You know, it was progressing really well. They decided we'll do motion capture on the skateboarding moves so that it'll look, so we can get it to look as realistic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in 1999, they thought it would be Activision thought it would be a great idea, obviously, to attach a professional skateboarder to the game to help sell it. And there was no bigger professional skateboarder than Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk was pretty much the household name for skateboarding.
Even if you didn't know skateboarding, you knew Tony Hawk.
Exactly.
Yep.
So when they reached out, they reached out to him, and they basically wanted they pitched it as they wanted the game to reflect Tony's signature style,
mm-hmm.
Because his technique and his acrobatics with skateboards were basically bar none the best in the business at the time. So Tony Hawk was more than willing to do that, because he actually always wanted to help create a video game around professional skateboarding, because up until that time there really weren't any.
Mm-hmm.
So he really wanted to do that. So he did it along with another group of other skaters. I believe there were 12 skaters in total in the original game. And again, they were all well-known professional skateboarders, but they weren't household names like Tony Hawk was.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony actually went a little bit of the extra mile, because when they animated him for the game, he voiced his own character too.
Oh, nice.
Which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so the game, like I said, was released August 31st of 1999. Now, it just so happened that at the X Games in 99, which was about a month before the game was about to be released, because the X Games are usually held around end of July, Tony Hawk successfully completed a 900 for the first time in skateboarding history a month before the game released.
I remember hearing about that.
A 900, for those who don't know what that would be, 900-degree spin on your skateboard. So in other words, like a 360 is a full turn and a 720 is 2.
Yep.
He did 2.5 turns on his skateboard, which at that point was absolutely unprecedented.
Yep.
And as a result of this, huge press for Tony Hawk, and on top of it, huge press for the game that was only a month from release. So there was a lot going into this game when it first got released in 99.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ratings for it were off the charts, more or less. So the PlayStation version, when it came out, got a 9.3 out of 10.
Nice.
By GameSpot and I believe IGN. So it's like ranked right up there. When the N64 came out a few months later, it got 9.1. So the cartridge port just as great as the PlayStation game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Dreamcast version actually had the highest rating out of all of them, which was a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh wow, sweet.
So I was actually very happy. I wound up playing the Dreamcast version.
Yeah, right.
Some of the cool stuff on the Tony Hawk game. First off, they had a killer soundtrack, and that thanks to the Tony Hawk game, it introduced me to the genre of ska. Not really listened to ska before that, but some great songs on there. In fact, one of the premiere song that was on the game, which was Superman by Goldfinger.
Oh yeah.
And if you remember the song, I still have it on my iPod for when I run. So when I go running every so often, I'm like Superman comes up and I just start smiling because then I think about the friggin' Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, and I just love that game and I love that song because of it. But
Good.
other bands like Dead Kennedys,
Mm.
Primus, the Vandals had a really really great soundtrack. Um, and then there were some other cool things in it like career mode.
Hmm.
Career mode, like they would have different things you needed to do, like different objectives to hit. Like on levels, there were like 5 tapes in different
Oh
areas, and
yeah.
you had to collect the 5 tapes by doing cool things.
Yep.
There were the letters that spelled out skate hidden in places, and you had to
Yes.
find those.
Wow.
And you only had like 2 minutes to complete these things because the whole point of the game was you had 2 minutes to do as many tricks as you could to get the highest points you could, and then at the same time you had 2 minutes to find these objects, and once you collected them all, you got points or completion
Moved
points.
right along in the game.
Yep. So, like I said before, there were 12 skaters in total in the game. It was Tony Hawk and 11 other professional skaters. All the skaters that were in the first game wound up making about $190,000 in royalties.
Wow.
That was their payment for being in the game. So
Holy
not bad
cow.
for a professional skateboarder.
Not bad at all.
And then obviously the success of the first game led to a second game, a third game, so on and so forth. And like I said, there've been 15 games. My personal favorite was the second one. I feel like the second one really hit its stride, added more players. The boards were more dynamic, and it was I don't know, it was just a really a cooler experience. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 was the first PlayStation 2 game to feature online gameplay.
Really?
So,
Wow.
yeah. So,
Huh.
so kudos to Activision for introducing online gameplay.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. Yeah, I thought that was actually a really interesting tidbit for the system.
Totally. Because I thought it was EverQuest for PS2. Huh.
Unless they're saying this is the first one in the Tony Hawk series to feature online gameplay.
Possibly. Because now that I think about it, I think EverQuest was the first one to use the hard drive, that PS2 hard drive. So
Okay.
Yeah, so it's possible.
It's possible. I mean, but whether it's in the series or originally, online
Either way,
gameplay,
big time.
yeah, online gameplay was huge for this game because you got to skate against other people. I used to love like doing the versus mode with friends and stuff. So especially because like I would beat the pants off them.
Yeah,
but
you were really good at it. Yeah,
I
had
like
no
Tony
shot.
Skater 2, like I was awesome at. I had honed in that game. Then in 2003, when they had gotten to the 5th game in the series, which was called Tony Hawk Underground.
Okay, I remember that one.
Then they started to switch gears in the game, and instead of it just being a standard skateboarding game, they started coming up with a storytelling plot. So there was an actual mode in the game. There was an experience, like there was a mode in the game where you were playing through a story.
Oh wow!
And it got categorized out of the sports gaming genre to an adventure game.
Oh really? It's weird.
Yeah, it's because what happens is in the story mode, you're an amateur skater as opposed to one of the professional skaters, and then you go through all these different stories. And the reason why Activision chose to do that is because the plot in the game involved criminal activity and things like that, and they didn't want to tie that to any of the professional skaters. So they wanted to create an original character that you can walk through the story mode with.
Okay, interesting.
Yep. So like I said, there were 15 games released. In December of 2015, the licensing deal between Tony Hawk and Activision expired. And then once it expired, other people who like skateboarding games now or became big fans because of the Tony Hawk series had to live off of other third-party skateboarding games.
Not so good.
Yeah, well, when you have a name attached to it, plus when you have a gaming legacy that everybody seems to love. Although, like towards the end, they were starting to fall off. Like, the reviews for like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 weren't very solid, so they started to decrease. But over the course of those 15 games, There were a total of 58 professional skateboarders in the games over the course of all 15.
Wow.
There were 28 guest appearances in games, which included Spider-Man, Wolverine, Iron Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Turtles, really?
The Turtles made it into a game.
Wow.
Gene Simmons of Kiss made it into a game. And basically the entire cast of Viva La Bam. So Bam Margera and its entire cast more or less made it into Tony Hawk games as well. And then in terms of sales, for anybody who wants to know just how successful this series was, over the course of the 15 years and the 15 games that were released, it sold just under 34 million copies.
Wow.
Which is pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So just really, really huge. And of course, the original one was, if I'm not mistaken, the most successful with over 5 million copies sold worldwide.
I would certainly
although I really thought the second one would have been the best-selling one, but it comes in second at 4.7 million.
As it should.
As it should, right? As sequels should. They slowly decrease. But a couple of final notes on Tony Hawk is that in January of this year, Tony Hawk confirmed in an interview that he is in early talks to continue the franchise without Activision.
Ooh.
And he's interested in using virtual reality for the next game.
Well, that is the way to go now. We talked about it a little bit last week with Josh. This VR thing.
Yeah, so we may be seeing one in VR. Of course, if you remember, I think it was on, I don't remember which game in the series, but I think it was on Xbox 360 that you could actually buy a skateboard to play.
Oh yeah, Skate. The game was called Skate.
Oh,
I don't know if that was part of the series.
No, there was a Tony Hawk series that came out with a skateboard.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was Skate. Maybe they just renamed it or something.
I'm not 100% sure. But
this board just maybe
seeing
compatible with a bunch of games.
Right. So. And then only a couple of months ago in March, a documentary about the Pro Skater series was announced by a former Neversoft employee.
Really?
So they're working on a documentary right now called Pretending I'm a Superman, the Tony Hawk video game story. And they've been interviewing former Neversoft employees around and professional skaters from throughout the entire series, including Tony Hawk. And of course, the name of the documentary, Pretending I'm a Superman, is a line from the song Superman by Goldfinger, which is in the first Tony Hawk game. So look for that around May 2018.
Oh, wow. Okay. Definitely will. I know I downloaded on Xbox 360 or PS3, one of them. They had Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD. I'm wondering if that was just an HD remake of the first game. I got to check that out.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I got to go back and check that. But probably yeah, that series was just sweet, especially those first couple of games. I think I had Pro Skater 2. My first one was on N64. That's the one I played it on. And
cool.
Yeah, game was.
That's when you were still the Nintendo snob.
That's because I couldn't afford a Dreamcast yet.
No, that's not true at all. We all know that. Don't deny it. We've discussed this a million times.
I've always said Nintendo first before anything else. Of course.
That's why you had an N64 and not a PlayStation.
Totally.
So
I didn't believe in discs.
But that's okay. It was nice that you came around eventually.
And while you're doing that, on a side note, the Summer Games Tokyo 2020 will feature skateboarding.
Yes.
In fact, a little fun fact here: 5 new sports will be Tokyo 2020: skateboarding, karate, surfing. They're bringing back baseball and softball, and and sports climbing.
Sports climbing.
I don't know. It's the Olympics.
All right. Well, we'll find out. And you know what? We'll find out in the in the Tokyo 2020 video game as well.
Yes, probably Mario and Sonic in Tokyo 2020.
Exactly. I used to love buying those Olympic video games.
Really?
I just loved playing them. Yeah, I don't know why. I just really enjoyed playing all the different sports in a video game, even if I never really played those sports or were interested in those sports. I don't know why. And it goes all the way back to the
Winter
Olympic
Classic and stuff.
No. The very first Olympic style game I ever remember playing, and I don't even think it was an Olympic game. I think it was called World Games on my Commodore 64.
Oh yeah. I remember that.
So that was I think that was the very first one that I remember playing. And man, it was hard. I was like, can you imagine playing a sports game on a Commodore 64?
It's got to hit like run shift. You got to keep hitting those buttons to get them to run.
I just remember trying to do the figure skating thing, and man, every time I jumped up in the air, I fell on my ass. And by the way, the game was also very sexist. There were only female figure skaters.
I think that's how it was in the late 80s.
Well, it wasn't, but
okay.
Hey. and like I said, it wasn't officially under the banner of an Olympic game. So Whitney Houston did not sing the national anthem.
Oh, okay. That was a Super Bowl.
Whatever.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Check it out. That's this week's Retro Spotlight. All right, so if you're fans of, I guess everyone's a fan of YouTube in some way, shape, or form, right? I guess.
I would hope so. It has captured and hypnotized the minds of hundreds of millions of people around the world.
And it's the best $9.99 next to the WWE Network that I spend every month for YouTube Red.
You pay?
I do not want to sit through 15 seconds of a commercial. I do not want to sit through 5 seconds of a commercial.
Oh my God, how lazy. They give you the option most of the time to skip the ad.
Yeah, most of the time, first of all. Second, I do not want to wait 5 seconds. I am tired of that. And best money I spend each month.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I don't want to. I want to comment on it, but I'm going to choose not to because.
So on YouTube, there's channel, Watch Mojo. They're actually really good. They do a lot of like top 10s and everything like that. And a friend of ours, actually, Josh from Victims and Villains, showed us this one, and I think it'd be fun to kind of talk about it. We'll put the link in the description. It's Watch Mojo's top 10 video game franchises that changed genres. So basically, it is what it sounds like. The game starts, say, like an RPG, and it turns into, a racing game, something weird like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's their top 10, and of course, top 10s are always debatable. You'll never get anyone to fully agree on a top 10, but
very true.
This is their top 10. We'll go through it. A couple of them we're going to touch on here. And, of course, if you have a top 10 idea, if you agree with this list, if you have other games you think about that really did good in one genre and then changed to another, let us know at the Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. So, all right, we're going to get into this. And right off the bat, I like the first game. Ant, you're going to be familiar with this one, Baldur's Gate.
Oh, Baldur's Gate! Yay!
As previously discussed, Anthony and Frank having their marathon of Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance.
Yes, with the crappiest ending in the world. With it, basically, hey, you beat it. Wait for the next game.
So
I'm sorry, that is still unforgivable. By the way, to the Baldur's Gate team. At that point in time, games have come a long way. It wasn't NES. You cannot end a game with text.
So, I think the video, if I remember correctly, I think Baldur's Gate just started as kind of like almost like a dice, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, whatnot, and then it turned into
the thing about Baldur's Gate is that, if anybody had played Dungeons and Dragons, the actual RPG game,
the board game.
Right, the board game, the RPG game, which I did when I was younger.
Yeah,
so, and you basically created your own characters, and they had all different types of stats and weapons and things like that. And then you have a dungeon master who would come up with the story for you to go through, and then obviously it was a dice rolling game to determine whether you succeeded or whatever. So they had taken the rules of that game and created video games out of it. And Baldur's Gate was probably one of the first ones to successfully translate the Dungeons and Dragons dice rolling game into an actual video game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it's a monumental transition when you think about it,
totally.
Because you're talking about there are so many rules and mechanics to that role-playing game.
Mm-hmm.
So to translate it into a video game, at least at the time, to me, it's just a Herculean effort. I think I said that wrong, but
Herculean.
Herculean. Thank you, Herculean.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know.
You on that one? Holy cow!
Yeah, I'm still sleeping.
Let's mark it.
Don't ever do that again. And by the way, just in terms of corrections, when I was talking about Whitney Houston in the Olympics, I was thinking of the song "One Moment in Time," which she sang at the 1988 Olympics. So no, it was not the national anthem, but she did sing a very monumental song at the Olympics. So I was wrong, but I'm not wrong.
Editor's correction.
Yes. So you have been corrected. I don't know how, but you've been corrected on that one. So Baldur's Gate, when I played the first one, it was actually on the PC, and I don't remember how many discs it was.
Oh man!
But it was definitely it was at least, I want to say it was at least 2 discs. But just a great game. I mean, you really felt like you were playing Dungeons and Dragons. It brought you right into the game, and it was very it was very kind of choose your own thing. You go up, you talk to characters and things like that. So definitely deserves a spot on the list.
Yep. And then it turned into pretty much a hack and slash, if you will, a successful hack and slash, in my opinion. I love that game.
Yes. When Frank and I picked it up for GameCube at the time, when we decided to play Baldur's Dark Alliance, it was, they still had a little bit of the RPG-esque elements, like the level up and things like that. But it became primarily a hack and slash game, which was super fun.
Oh, totally.
If the ending wasn't so bad, I would recommend people go play it.
I say go play it anyway. It's good. If you love Diablo.
It's a great game. I mean, I do recommend. I mean, definitely go play it. Don't be surprised about the underwhelming ending, but it's a fun game nonetheless.
There you go. All right. Next up on the list was Resident Evil, which I was a little confused with the genre change. But I think what they meant was, on the video, it started as a survival horror, and then it turned into like an adventure game.
Yes.
And then it went back, like Resident Evil 7 kind of went back to that hardcore horror.
Yeah, I think 4, 5, and 6, and that's actually when I stepped out of the Resident Evil games, because I played 1, 2, and 3, and I played Code Veronica, and all excellent survival horror games, really, really awesome. And then when they came out with Resident Evil 4, it became more of like you said, more of like an adventure shooting game.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I wasn't against those types of games. In fact, I have Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube. I picked it up a couple years ago, again at a store somewhere, with the intention of actually sitting down and playing it. And of course I haven't, because I have no time. But the fact that it was an adventure game when it first came out turned me off to it, because because the formula was working for me so well. I didn't want to switch off to another game. Now, be that as it may, Resident Evil 4 was very well received. It was extremely successful. So they managed to do something right. Obviously, and then after 6, which I don't think was very well received, they decided to go back to the survival horror aspect in 7. So I'm actually looking forward to grabbing 7 one of these days. Right. So I don't know if it's out yet though. But
I think it is.
So 7 is definitely one I'm interested in grabbing, because it's going back to the roots that I know for the series. But again, I mean, it's just a testament to the bravery, of the company to sit there and switch it up like that and still manage to make a successful game. And
I think Resident Evil 7, also plays on the PlayStation VR headset.
Oh, wow. That must be freaky.
Next up on the list is a game I've never heard before, Police Quest, later on known as SWAT.
Don't know that one.
Yeah, basically
when I saw it, I thought it was interesting, but
Police Quest was one of those old school computer point and click games that then they tried moving into like full motion video, which didn't work too well, and then they spawned off this series called SWAT, which almost turned into, as per the video, almost like a Rainbow Six, Tom Clancy Rainbow Six-esque type gaming. So that was on the list. I definitely would like to check that out. Read more into it with Police Quest. Dynasty Warriors is next on the list, and I completely forgot that it was a fighter originally.
Yep. Yes, it was.
Yep. That turned into a hack and slash game, but the very first game on the PlayStation was a straight up fighter.
And it wasn't a very good one either, if I remember correctly.
Not that well. Here's one that we can really sink our teeth into. Metroid.
Yes.
From that 2D platform to the first person.
Yeah, Metroid Prime I think goes down as like one of the best in the series, and one of the best games on the N64 if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, totally.
And again, at the time, I think N64, like around the late 90s, is when those first person shooters really started to come into their own. I mean, you had Wolfenstein and Doom, which really kind of set the table for them.
Mm-hmm.
But then GoldenEye, Perfect Dark.
Oh yeah.
And then, right, Perfect Dark? Is that?
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah. Okay. And
Turok maybe.
Right, Turok was another one, and then of course Metroid Prime.
Oh yeah.
And a buddy of mine who's been on the he guested on the show when we were at Barcade. Rich, huge Metroid fan. He can tell you all about Metroid. Unfortunately, he's not here to talk about it. But hi, Rich. The first person aspect of that game was just fantastic. And anybody out there who has not played Metroid Prime and you have an N64, go get it.
Definitely. Castlevania, probably one of the successful genre changers. That was a straight up 2D platformer. You can even mention maybe the RPG aspects of Castlevania 2. But when it switched to Symphony of the Night and that complete overhaul, almost a new type of RPG type gaming with Symphony of the Night.
2D side scrolling. I think it became a 2D side scrolling open world RPG.
There you go.
Like that's the best way I can kind of explain it, because you didn't really see many of those before. Like Simon's Quest, which you're currently playing, probably they made the attempt to do something like that, because Castlevania 1, Castlevania 3 and 4 and Bloodlines they were all pretty much levels. You went through levels, and when you got to the end, you fought the boss and you won.
Even the ones on Game Boy, the handheld ones, the exact same way.
Yeah, same way, all levels. Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, was the first attempt that they tried to do something a little more RPG-esque, but it really wound up being an adventure type game, a 2D adventure game. But again, in that game, no levels. So, right. And it got mixed reviews at the time. So I think once that happened, they kind of just went back to the old formula, because the original Castlevania was so well received, and they made a good call. So when they were finally able to, at least this is my assessment, it's like when Symphony of the Night came out, they were feeling more confident, obviously with the systems like the PlayStation, and they were able to incorporate more on the disc than they could on a cartridge. And we have probably one of the most influential and to for me, probably one of the greatest games of all time.
Agreed. Totally.
Which is Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night, amazing soundtrack as well. And pretty much every Castlevania game after Symphony of the Night played the exact same way. All the Game Boy Advance games play like Symphony of the Night. So. Yep,
with the exception of, I will say, the two N64 games, which they decided to go foray into 3D, and those didn't work out so well.
No, not so much. All right, next on the list, The Sims.
The Sims.
Yes.
I still marvel at the fact of how obsessed I was with a game that was ultimately about living somebody's life. It made in hindsight, it made no sense to me, because I'm like, how am I obsessed with a game where I'm telling people basically to go eat dinner and to go to sleep when that's what I do in real life?
Well, but remember this, the way it started though. The Sims originally was SimCity, and then they had a lot of spin-offs, Sim Farm, Sim Ant, Sim Helicopter, Sim Earth.
Yeah.
But they
they were cool games. Like SimCity is also like one of those games, like I still go back and play SimCity.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just a fun game. Building up the city is just super fun.
It was one of the best games I had on the Super Nintendo. So it was so enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. So then when The Sims came out, it was like, I was like, well, this is interesting. I'm like, but how fun could it be to, build a home and just live a person's life? And I'm like, turns out pretty damn fun.
Next up is on this list, again, it is the Watch Mojo Top 10 Video Game Franchises with changing genres. I messed up the end of that title. Fallout. Fallout, originally a isometric 2.5D gameplay. It kind of played like, it looked like Baldur's Gate as far as that, and Diablo 3 with that ratio view to it. Fallout 3 becoming a first-person shooter, basically, with RPG elements.
Yep, and again, it's just one of those things where it's like the first-person shooter was becoming a big deal, so they decided, let's go that route, but let's mix up a little RPG in there. And they, just one of those recipes for success. It's interesting how developers really come up with these things, because it's like you risk a lot when you're, especially if you have a successful series, to change the game up on people. So, like I said, for example, like the Resident Evil one, it's like I wasn't receptive to it and never made my way to Resident Evil 4 when and it turned out to be a great game. It was really well received, and I'm like, well, I kind of missed out on that. But it's interesting to see the risks that they take. Now, Fallout, I will admit, I've never played.
Yeah, neither have I. Yeah,
but it's always in talks. It's always in discussion, and they're still working on it. They still come out.
Oh yeah, totally.
So yeah, they're still making Fallout games. So obviously it worked.
Next, so we got 2 left here, and we got 2 big ones. So first one, which you may be shocked isn't number 1, but Mario Brothers, which started out, and I hate the original Mario Brothers game, but it just started out as a single screen, 2-player, had to destroy these monsters, which end up being Koopas, in the sewers of New York. And I don't even have to go into what Mario Brothers turned into. In fact, go back a little before Mario Brothers. You started in Donkey Kong, so
right. Well, Mario Brothers became Super. That's what happened.
Pretty much. Not only that, but you want to talk about genre changer. Super Mario Brothers was a side-scroller, right? 2D side-scroller. Then you got Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, Mario Soccer, all these different games.
Super Mario RPG.
Yes, big time. One of the best RPGs.
And then obviously the biggest jump into 3D that I will ever remember is Super Mario 64 for the N64. I mean, at that time, it was like that level of 3D was unheard of. So when that game came out for purchase with the original N64, it was just seeing the previews for it, you had to own that. And if you were buying an N64, that was a must.
And thank goodness the game was good.
So, not only was the game good, the game was amazing. Fantastic. The game was absolutely amazing. I mean, for the first time ever, like a Mario game that took tons of time to really invest in and play, and you didn't get tired of doing it.
Not at all.
You didn't get tired of playing it. You always were in there finding little things and doing. Every level had 7 different actually objectives that you can complete, and they were all super different, super fun. I mean, and of course, everybody remembers. Everybody, if whoever owned it, can remember very clearly Mario's voice made his debut in N64,
and he's going strong today still.
Yeah, and he still does his voice. He also does the voice of I forget his name, but he does the voice of several other characters in the Mario, including Luigi.
Wario, Waluigi. He does a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a few of them. But so Mario's voice made his debut there in the N64 game, and the rest is history.
Yep. And I guess, now that I was thinking about it, I can understand why this one's number 1, because of the biggest change and the biggest impact that it had. The number 1 video game franchise with a changing genre, Warcraft, or as we now know it today, World of Warcraft. The original starting off, again, like Diablo, like Baldur's Gate, with that kind of 2/3 aspect, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And then they just put all the money on the table and jumped into as an MMORPG, massive multiplayer online role-playing game, especially during a time when EverQuest was the absolute dominating king of the MMORPG.
Yeah, and everybody thought EverQuest was never going to give up that title because they were the first ones out of the gate to come out with a massively successful MMORPG. Yep. So it was just like, who would be able to beat this? And out comes World of Warcraft, blindsides them completely, and takes over the entire MMORPG genre.
No doubt.
And they are, and as of today, still the most dominant MMORPG. I have personally never played it because I am afraid that if I start playing it, everything else in my life is going to stop. Like, because I have heard stories from friends of mine who would be like, yep, I go to work for 8 hours, I come home, and then it's World of Warcraft until 3 a.m. And I'm like, I can't invest that time. So it's like, it's a game where I've always wanted to jump in and play it. I was like, but I'm just afraid.
Yeah, I've dabbled in EverQuest on the PS2. It was fun. I did try World of Warcraft a couple of times. I know a couple of my friends, played World of Warcraft, want to get back into World of Warcraft. I've tried it. It's a great game, but you're right. I just can't invest that much time into it. But who knows? Lord knows, I'll probably jump in again sometime soon.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get somebody. We should get somebody on the show. Maybe we'll retro spotlight that one day and actually
totally.
have somebody talk about World of Warcraft. I think we know one or two people who could discuss it intimately.
Yep, friend of ours, Jonathan. Also, when you've watched a couple of videos of Trish Plays, she's huge into World of Warcraft. So we definitely get those people in. I don't know if I want the two of them talking to each other. I don't.
No, we can separate that. But to your point before, though, I do believe, based on the list, I kind of agree. Like as influential as Mario was in terms of game changing, or genre changing, I got to tip my hat to Warcraft. Really do.
So there you go. Those are your Watch Mojo top 10 video game franchises that successfully changed genres. Hey, everyone, don't forget, if you're on Long Island, hopefully some of you are, don't forget, coming up this August 12th and August 13th, the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo 2017, third year running. I've been to the first two, and they're awesome. And the Retro Gamers, we're going to be there. So, right? We're going to be there?
Yeah, we're going to be there unless I get called out of the country. My understanding is I will be in Long Island with you.
Sweet. It will be this year for the first time. It will be at the Cradle of Aviation Museum. Single day tickets $20 for adults, $10 for children. Of course, those are $5 more at the door. But you can get a 2-day pass, $30. For adults, $15 for children. And the tickets are available at cradleofaviation.org. Check it out. They're going to have tournaments. They're going to have stuff for sale. It's just a really good time. And I think at the Cradle of Aviation, it's going to be even better because they have the retro game, the arcades and everything that I've broadcast from a couple of times. And with a bigger venue, it's going to mean more fun. And we'll be walking around there. You'll know it's us because we'll be walking around with microphones.
Oh, is that how you're gonna be able to figure out it's us
for a little while, and then we'll walk around.
Maybe we should get like retro gamer tees or something that's a little more identifiable.
Retro tees soon to be on sale, hopefully.
We're gonna have to open a shop.
So again, Long Island Retro Gaming Expo 2017, Saturday, August 12th, Sunday, August 13th, Cradle of Aviation Museum, Garden City, New York. Check it out. All right, well, it's that time. We're going to start winding this episode down, and as we do each and every week, Anthony, what happened this week in gaming?
Nothing.
And good night, everybody.
All right, so actually, this was actually a pretty eventful week in gaming history. So, and there's one in particular that I'm going to hold until the end. And if I forget, Larry, please remind me to go back to it because it's definitely worth mentioning.
Okay.
So, I'm going to start in the year 1982. So, going way back 35 years ago to a game on DOS, disk operating system. It called Lunar Landing.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
And Lunar Landing, if you don't know what kind of game it is based on the title, then I can't help you. Moving on to 1984 in Japan on the Sharp X1.
What? Wait a minute.
The Sharp X1.
No one ever mentioned a Sharp X1.
Well, there were previous versions before the X68000.
Wow, that's a lot of different versions. All right, what was on the X1?
Well, it is. But for the Sharp X1, you remember the game Xevious?
Oh, yeah.
That came out on the Sharp X1 way back in 1984.
Dare I say that sounds like probably one of the first vertical scrollers.
No, I mean you had Space Invaders before that.
No. I meant like vertical scroller. Like,
vertical scrolling game. Yes, quite possibly. Yes.
Yep. Cool.
Quite possibly. 1985 on the Famicom Disk System in Japan. I believe this is my weird title for the week.
All right.
Chack Pop.
This is a PG show. How dare you? What is it?
Chack Pop.
Okay.
CHACK''N. Pop.
Fair enough.
Check and Pop. No idea what the game's about, and I don't want to know. So moving on to 1986 on the Famicom Disk System in Japan. Definitely worth mentioning, Dragon Warrior.
Oh, totally. All right, sweet.
Awesome game.
Yep.
Absolutely awesome
Got
game.
that for free just by being a member of Nintendo Power.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It worked. Strategy worked for them. Suckers. No, I'm just kidding. So jumping to 1989, also on Famicom in Japan. My entire 80s list is basically in Japan. This week in retro gaming. So on the Famicom, Little Ninja Brothers.
Okay.
No idea.
Yep. Neither one.
In my brain though, it makes me think that maybe it was the Three Ninjas movie game, but I don't know. Little Ninja Brothers, 1989. Jumping to 1991, and we're still in Japan. We are going with the Game Boy version of Game Boy Wars.
Oh my God, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I thought maybe if anybody could explain it, you could, because
why does that sound
Game Boy
familiar?
Wars. All right, Larry's got homework for next week. All right, homework for next week, Larry. Game Boy Wars. We also got Rally Bike on the Sharp X68000.
There we go. Now we're talking. Good.
Yep. We can't do This Week in Retro Gaming without a Sharp X68000. Also this week we got Princess Maker on the PC-98 in Japan.
Oh, okay.
For all those people who want to make themselves into a pretty little princess. And then moving on to the TurboGrafx 16 in Japan, we got Hatris. Which, if you don't realize the name of it, yes, it is a ripoff of Tetris with hats. 1992, on Game Gear in Japan, Joe Montana Football. I point this out because Joe Montana that was a big moment for Sega to get Joe Montana's license for their football games, because it helped. That was one of the games that helped started to put them on the map and slowly start to become contenders with Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. I think I had Joe Montana Football. It was a good game.
There you go. And then on DOS in 1992, we got Hugo's House of Horrors.
Okay.
I don't know. Anything with the word horror in it, and I'm in. And then in the arcade in Japan, King of the Monsters 2, The Next Thing.
No. How original. No, that's a great fighting series.
Yeah, absolutely awesome fighting series. Jumping to 1993, we're still in Japan on Game Boy, WWF Superstars 2.
Ooh, nice. Yes, I remember that game.
1994, still in Japan on Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Oh, wow. All right, there we go.
We got a big player there.
Yep.
And then Gakuen Bomber for Sharp X68000.
Sure.
Sure, whatever. Moving to 1995 in the good old US of A, we got Sid Meier's Colonization on Windows.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, remember the Sid Meier games?
Yes, big time.
We also got Alien Sector for the Sharp X68000 in Japan. I think that was the most Sharp X68000 games I've ever mentioned.
Yeah, about 3 of them, right?
Yeah, 3. All right, jumping to 1996. In the United States, Skeleton Warriors on PlayStation, and a game called Magical Drop 2 on the Neo Geo CD.
Oh, God, I remember hearing about that, yes.
1997, in the U.S., we got Lemmings 3D on the PlayStation.
Okay, yep, I played that.
We got FIFA Soccer 97 on the PlayStation.
Yep, I did not play that.
And in 1997, for some odd reason, we got NHL Power Play 96 on the Sega Saturn. I think they fell a little behind in development.
They had to push something out for the debut in Saturn.
And then on PlayStation in Japan, here's yet another weird title that I had to make a note of. We had a game called Pet in TV.
Okay. That's like snakes on a plane. Like that really, right. You know what's happening.
Yeah, you know exactly what's happening. There is a pet in your TV.
And you got to free it with a hammer.
Oh, lots of broken televisions in 97 in Japan. Moving on to 1998, big game to bring up. On Windows release in the United States, Unreal.
Oh, wow. Yep.
Which was the precursor to Unreal Tournament.
Yep, and made its own operating, not an operating system, but like its own graphic engine. You hear anything but an Unreal Engine. Okay.
Yep. Also in 98 on the N64, we got Forsaken.
Ooh, okay.
Which was another really good game. I'm going to jump a couple years to 2000. On the Game Boy Color, 1942 was released.
Oh, I love that game.
Great game. Yep. Absolutely great game. Yep. And something that we just brought up while we were talking about the top 10 game changers. Perfect Dark on the N64.
Oh, sweet.
Yep. So we were talking about that while we were discussing one of the talking about Metroid Prime.
Yep.
We also this was a big year or a big week in 2000. Siphon Filter 2 on PlayStation.
Yep.
Nightmare Creatures 2 on PlayStation. Street Fighter X2 Plus on PlayStation.
A lot of sequels.
And then in Japan, you got Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Oh, wow. Really? On Neo Geo? That's weird.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, game systems last longer there.
Yeah.
Jump into 2001. Resident Evil Gaiden on the Game Boy Color.
Oh, I remember that. Play. Yes.
Red Faction for the PlayStation 2.
That was started a great series.
And my personal favorite game that when I saw it in the stores, I could not stop laughing because I could not believe they made a game like this. Today makes total sense because they make games on everything. There's a game about a goat that's really popular these days.
Have you ever played Goat Simulator?
No.
I downloaded it for free on the Xbox One. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, so no, never played it, but highly popular. But in 2001, we got our own little ridiculous game called 18-Wheeler American Pro Trucker on the Dreamcast.
Oh, God, yeah. That was an arcade game.
Yep.
I remember the arcade because it had a giant steering wheel. And was it a 2-player? Did someone have to steer the back of the truck as well on that one? No, that was a different game. But I just remember that giant steering wheel that you had to maneuver in the arcade. I had that on Dreamcast, yes.
I know you did. Moving on. To 2002, on Windows, Grand Theft Auto 3 made its way over to the PC.
Okay.
Of course, it originated on the Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
On PlayStation 2, we got Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights.
Sure.
For all you Scooby-Doo fans.
Yeah.
We also got on Windows Soldier of Fortune 2 Double Helix.
Awesome. Real fast, going back to Scooby-Doo, did you hear about, because I know you're a fan of Supernatural.
The Supernatural episode with Scooby-Doo.
Yep.
Cannot wait.
All right.
Cannot wait.
Moving right along.
It's going to be awesome. Also, PlayStation 2 in Japan in 2002, Warriors of Might and Magic.
Oh, nice.
2003, Game Boy Advance, WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games.
Oh, that game ruled. That was such a different game from anything else that ever came out.
Mm-hmm. Also, multi-platform release for the Hulk. Marvel's Hulk.
We'll take it.
On PlayStation 2, we got Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Operation Resurrection.
Nice.
And then,
is this the
one I was holding for.
Okay.
No, this isn't it. 2003, Miniature Golf Plus for the Atari 2600.
What year?
2003. Something happened in the early 2000s where they were just like, we're just going to release a bunch of Atari 2600 games.
That's been happening a lot, but I can't believe they're homebrews because I don't think homebrews would be on these lists.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's my homework for next week. I need to find out what this whole early 21st century Atari release,
Honestly.
2600 release games were. So hopefully you'll hear about that on next week's podcast, if I don't forget.
Sweet.
Jumping to 2004, on Windows, we got Noah's Adventures. And which Noah am I talking about? I am talking about Noah of the Ark.
There you go. Nice.
Not Raiders of the Lost Ark. Noah of the Ark. That game.
Okay.
Game Boy Advance, Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Oh, on Game Boy Advance? Oh, yes. Yep. Great game.
Also, River City Ransom on Game Boy Advance.
Okay, yep. Good re-release.
The Sims Bustin' Out on N-Gage.
Stupid N-Gage.
We also got The Sims Mega Deluxe on Windows. and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 in Japan on PlayStation 2.
There we go.
2005. Whew, I'm tired.
Yeah, it is a long one.
I told you it was a long
one.
You
did.
2005, Fire Emblem, The Sacred Stones for Game Boy Advance.
Good.
WarioWare Twisted for Game Boy Advance.
Oh, amazing.
A game called Laser Dolphin for Windows.
Sure.
Again, one of those games where I think I know what's going on. And I'm calling out a specific country that I never really mention because they got a very special game this week in history. So shout out to Poland.
Oh.
In 2005, this week in retro gaming history, you got Playboy the Mansion on Windows. Congratulations. You go Poland.
Wow, it took them a while to get that. Oh, Playboy the Mansion.
Yes. And closing out this week in retro gaming, as I usually do in 2006, that's usually when things started to switch over to the current systems. In 2006, we got Heroes of Might and Magic 5 for Windows.
Oh, okay.
We got Jaws Unleashed for Xbox, PS2, and Windows.
So fun story about that one. Our buddy who hates Nintendo. So he's like, he goes,
"Hi, Aunt, how's it going?
Yeah, what's up, Aunt? We're gonna get you on the show soon. Don't worry." But he says he never listens. So, he's
never going on the show.
I forgot what it was, but I remember we were talking about that game. He's like, "Yo, man, I really want that game." Blah blah blah. And I saw. Oh, I think I was getting a discount because I used to work at Barnes and Noble, and we used to get a discount at GameStop. She's like, "Hey, man, can you go get me that game?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll get my discount, no problem." So, I bought Jaws Unleashed, and it was the PS2 greatest hits version, so it was cheap to begin with. Long story short, I still own Jaws Unleashed for PS2. He never took it, never gave me money for it. I think I've played it once.
Oh, is that good, huh?
So, and if you're listening, I still have the card, I still have the disc, and it's yours when you're ready.
And you still owe him like $18.
$19.99 minus 35% discount plus tax.
Oh, okay. So you actually only owe him probably a little under $15. So what are you waiting for? Get your Jaws Unleashed. And then to close it out, two last games: Teen Titans for GameCube and PS2 in 2006.
Nice.
And the Street Fighter Alpha Anthology on PlayStation 2 in Japan.
Good one.
That is This Week in Gaming. Wow, that was a lot.
Was that the big final game you wanted to talk about?
Oh, no. See, I forgot.
See, good thing I wrote it down.
I told you.
Holy cow.
I told you I was going to forget, and thank you for reminding me. No. This Week in Gaming History, one of the most monumental games was released. A game that redefined the industry in 1980 in Japan. May 22nd, 1980, in the arcade. The very first appearance of Pac-Man.
Wow. Pac-Man's birthday.
One and only Pac-Man. It is Pac-Man's birthday this week. Happy birthday, Pac-Man. Yes. We love you. We still play you. Championship Edition is one of my favorite games. One of my favorite download games.
That game's fantastic.
Nothing beats the original Pac-Man, even though Miss Pac-Man's better.
Yes, this is true. But wow, Pac-Man. All right. Happy birthday, Pac-Man. You're as old as I am. Congratulations.
And I'm older than he.
You sure are. All right, sweet. That was This Week in Gaming, and that's another week of the Retro Gamer. So that was some good stuff.
And we covered quite a bit this week. For everybody listening, I hope you have eidetic memories, because that's a ton of information.
Yeah, go back and listen to it again and again and again, because the every play helps us big time. So.
Yes, it does. Just keep playing us, even if you're not listening to us.
So check us out, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. Check us out on Instagram at @_RetroGamers. I'm everywhere pretty much at More365, MOHR365. Aunt, you got anything?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a big little tidbit of news. My TV show that I usually plug, my TV pilot that's been making the festival rounds, Inside Guy, just won the Best TV Pilot at the Die Laughing Film Festival. Best TV Pilot Award goes to Inside Guys. So really awesome news. Super excited about it. And we're just going to keep plugging away and making great things. So on Facebook, Inside Guys Show. We've got a nice Facebook page there, and if you want to check out our website, which has information about the show, it is www.inside-guy.com. retro-guy.com.
That's the first I heard of that news. Congratulations, Ant. That's awesome. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Very happy about that.
And good. And also, you want to speak about websites, theretrogamers.com. Check it out.
Oh, yeah, there's that, too. So the retrogamers.com, which we launched our website. We're still trying to add some cool stuff in there, so there'll be great things to come. But we've got our base website that's up and running if you guys want to check that out. It's also pretty cool as well. Yeah,
it's got the history of every episode. We're going to do some blogging. We're going to do some other stuff, so definitely check it out, theretrogamers.com. And with that, we're going to call it a week. So, Ant, as always, pleasure to talk with you. I'll catch you next time.
Pleasure to talk with you as well.
Excellent. And
next week, we have the Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, my gosh, that is correct.
Memorial Week episode.
3-day weekend. Thank goodness.
We may have to retro spotlight on a patriotic game.
I like the sound of that. Patriotic pinball. I just came across that in my collection. Trust me, don't look it up.
It won't be that one.
All right, everyone. Have a good week. See you later.